On the eve of the Stanley Cup Final, we're taking a look back.
Back at what's changed since last year's final.
How are these Panthers and Oilers the same? How are they different?
We'll answer those questions and so much more on this Tuesday night Stanley Cup Final edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello there, hockey fans, and welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Cam Stewart, a bitter Boston Bruins fan, born in Boston, now living on the Third Coast.
And I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. Cam, we are 24 hours away from puck drop on Game 1 of this rematch edition of the Stanley Cup Final between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Media day today. A lot of scuttlebutt about if and how the Oilers can possibly win the cup this time around.
They are the incumbents here, the challengers, if you will, the challengers against the champs. 24 hours to go. I don't want to be sedated, man. I want every part of this, all right, as we get the rematch going. The rematch that I don't think many of us saw coming going into this postseason, but apparently Matthew Tkachuk saw coming all the way back in last year's handshake line when he said to Connor McDavid, hopefully we'll see you back here next year. That thing would have been lost media forever if the Stars could get anything going and score more than one goal in a game, or if the Leafs didn't blow it against the Panthers. But here we are. It's the same two teams.
Here we are.
Again, 2024 to 2025. It was obviously a classic series last year. But what's interesting about this, Tyler, is both of these teams are a little bit different in kind of some big ways. Neither of them went out and got a big free agent signing or really took someone from their core, added someone new to their core. But these are different teams. Different guys are stepping up. They're playing in slightly different styles. That's what we're going to look at on today's episode. Let's start with the incumbent, the Edmonton Oilers, losers in the 7th game last year. And Tyler, I think the thing that we have been raving about this team all postseason long is that they're not the Oilers that we remember. Edmonton was a pretty solid defensive team last year in the postseason. Stuart Skinner was pretty good in the postseason last year. In between time was a little different. But what I think has surprised me is this is a team that can muck it up a little bit. Like, this is a really strong defensive, disciplined hockey team that feels like a very different team from what we saw the last few years.
Yeah, certainly this time around under Chris Knobloch, the Oilers have seemingly implemented a defensive system that's a little bit more structured, at least from my vantage point. That includes a more disciplined box plus one formation in the defensive zone, reducing those higher level scoring chances. And then on the other side, I'd argue they've been a more aggressive forechecking team throughout this season. And we've seen that through these playoffs. Yes, maybe myself, Cam, we didn't have Edmonton reaching the Stanley Cup Final this season. Our picks were not great. But what's been great has been the Edmonton Oilers, and they've been able to persevere through a season of what ifs to get back to the same point. Now the big question is, Cam, can they do what they failed to do last year, and that's win the Stanley Cup?
And even last year, we were still talking about, McDavid, Draisaitl, everybody else, right? Ryan Nugent-Hopkins didn't have a great season this year. He was okay in the postseason last year. Draisaitl obviously was hurt, but I'm going to stick with it. Choked in the Stanley Cup Final, 3 points. Everybody's hurt at this point in the season, and he only comes through with 3 points in the 7-game series. And that was a huge, huge miss for Edmonton. Obviously, when you're taking out a top 5 or 6 player in the world, that's going to be a big loss, but no one really picked up any kind of slack. And we have been so in on the Oilers' depth this postseason. And they didn't even need to change guys, Tyler. It's still the same old guys. It's Corey Perry and Evander Kane. They're just playing a lot better. Let's look at last year, 2024. Corey Perry had 3 points and was a -3 in 19 postseason games. This year, in 10 postseason games, 10 points. That's a pretty easy one to figure out there, Tyler. Even I can do that. That's a point a game. 7 goals, 3 assists, and a +6 in 10 games. Evander Kane, last year, 20 games played in the postseason, 8 points, -7 this year. 11 points, 6 of them coming from goals, and a +5 in 15 games. I know that's kind of borrowed time when you're talking about 40-year-old guys, but the way they've stepped up and the much improved Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has made it so Draisaitl and McDavid are still at the top of all these lists. But if, God forbid, something goes wrong with them, the Oilers can probably still win some big games.
My only pushback there, Cam, going with those stats and the numbers, is it's the Stanley Cup Final. Clean slate in my mind. It doesn't matter what you've done up until this point. Can Nugent-Hopkins continue that this time around?
Sure.
Can Corey Perry continue that here in this Stanley Cup Final? Because what we saw last year against the same team they're facing this year, how do you adjust? Well, you add Victor Arvidsson, Jeff Skinner to the forward situation up there. And then on the defensive side, you've added guys like Kulikov and Schmidt and Boquist. So on those one-year deals, how do those guys impact? Some of the guys that we haven't talked about a ton, what kind of impact will they have? And then, hey, Anthony Stolarz, not there either. So can Stuart Skinner stand tall between the pipes? Obviously,
Yeah.
Pickard, you know?
He's serviceable. He played pretty well when he was called into action in that first round and part of the second round too with Pickard.
So I'm curious to see what happens. I think the numbers approach that you give and provide, Cam, is important to consider. But I also think this time of season, Stanley Cup Final, clean slate, give me what you got in these possible 7 games, and we'll go from there.
And let me throw this then at you, taking the stats out of it. Let's just put it here. I mean, obviously both these teams had been in the final last year, right? It's the rematch. But the Oilers had not been there before. And we saw what the Panthers looked like when they hadn't been there before in 2023. It was ugly. They came back the next year and they looked much better, even though it was a 7-game series. Edmonton was right there. Edmonton was a goal away, and there were a lot of holes in that team for being so close to winning the Stanley Cup. So let's look at it from that standpoint, Tyler. Do you think that experience of playing 7 Stanley Cup final games last year for these super talented but pretty inexperienced and big game players is going to make a difference this time around?
Oh, absolutely. Experience is key. As someone who did not play professionally
yet,
I'm pretty sure, Cam, you fall into that same category. Yet we get to talk about the pros, which is special, I'd say. We are fortunate to be able to do this. There is a certain energy, nervousness that regardless of who you are or what you've experienced, if you're playing in the Super Bowl for the first time, heck, if you're playing in the Yale-Harvard football game for the first time, if you're playing any sort of big-time sporting event or event in general, there will be nervous energy. And that's a good thing. But how are you able to maintain that energy and use it in a positive way? Having a full 7 games in the Stanley Cup Final a season ago under your belt is critical when it comes to these Edmonton Oilers, because that feeling for all those first timers that they were feeling in game 1 or game 2, heck, game 3, because it was a seesaw Stanley Cup Final last year. 3 wins, game 7. But having that experience allows you to prepare your mind and body and absorb those nervous energies in a different way this time around. And that benefits the Edmonton Oilers.
And one weird thing about the Oilers, by the way, that's kind of different, but also falls in the same as last year, is you don't have Zach Hyman here. That's different, right? You had Zach Hyman in this series last year. He was obviously a big part of this postseason run that the Oilers are on right now. But without him, it's probably not too dissimilar, kind of a similar situation that you were in last year with having Leon Draisaitl at 20% or whatever you want to put him at, right? Like that is a big producing guy in your lineup that's not there, right? And essentially, for all intents and purposes, Draisaitl was not there in the postseason last year, or in the final, I should say, was not the same player, and it showed. Let's talk about the Florida Panthers. They are the defending champs here. They're looking to make it back-to-back. They're already talking dynasty, and they haven't even won a second one yet. What is different about this Florida Panthers team, and could they get the job done even quicker than last year? Let's go over that next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
But first, if you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, then I always recommend cracking into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, which gives you more than 10% of your daily value. How about that? Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, and we've been over this, if you love watching our show, then you know that both myself and Cam love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Look, if I'm snacking at my desk here at home, if I'm on a road trip, if I just need that quick protein boost at the gym, these guys are always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every show, and I know there are a lot of you out there, you like that satisfying crunch, the in-shell option is a classic favorite too. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. And again, whether you're running between meetings or just dropping off the kids at school or at a hockey game or this time of year, maybe baseball, soccer, pistachios, Wonderful Pistachios. That's the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Back on Locked On NHL Game Night alongside Tyler Feldman. I'm Cam Stewart. Guys, be sure, of course, to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Give us your Stanley Cup Final predictions. I want to see those in the comments below. What's like the biggest change in these teams as to what is going to lead to one of them eventually lifting the cup here in the next couple of days and weeks? You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts as well. We've talked about the Oilers. Now let's shift to the defending champs. The Cats are here for the 3rd year in a row. They probably could have got it done a lot quicker in last year's series, but it turns out to be a classic. Yet there's a bit of a shakeup in this Panthers core, and it feels like they have shaken it to absolute perfection. Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers on what makes this year's team different and possibly even scarier.
The Panthers have some new blood in this year's Stanley Cup Final. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, here to quickly tell you how the Panthers are different compared to last year. The Panthers have a core that they have identified that most of their contracts will go up to 2030. But the Panthers, in this window that they're in, they had to make some changes and get some talent on the cheap. And the big contributors for the Panthers have been trade deadline acquisitions for the most part. Brad Marchand being on that third line as the Panthers got him at the buzzer, and what him, Anton Lundell, and Eetu Luostarinen have done, especially in the games that have clinched the series, multi-point games in Tampa Bay and Toronto, and getting the 3rd goal in Game 5 against Carolina. Seth Jones was very impactful in Game 7 against the Leafs and has been a big part of clicking with the Panthers, especially when Aaron Ekblad was suspended. We'll break all of this down and more on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your team every day.
Look, Tyler, Armando said it, not me. I'm going to talk about it, but Armando brought up Brad Marchand, and we've talked about it a couple of times in this postseason, right? That trade deadline ends up being huge. Seth Jones has been massive for them in this postseason, especially as Armando described in that Toronto series, late in that Toronto series as well. Brad Marchand led that series in points as a 37-year-old. So this is a big kind of difference, even though it's on the lower levels. No Brandon Montour. Now you got Seth Jones. No Vlad Tarasenko. Now you got Brad Marchand. If they don't make those deals at the trade deadline, are we still talking about the Panthers being in a third straight Stanley Cup Final?
Maybe. Probably not, though. All the moves they've made, though, that were just discussed, makes you forget about the guys that aren't there anymore. And I do need to say, I think I jumped the gun on Stolarz in the first segment talking about the Oilers, when really it's a situation with the Panthers. So that's on me. I don't know how that slipped. But even in between the pipes, Sergei Bobrovsky, that trust in what he's been able to do. Stolarz was able to carve out his own great season up in Toronto. That worked out for him. But now in this situation, to every point that's been made so far, yeah, this Florida Panthers team, it's almost revamping, but in a way that made the team stronger, bringing guys that really fit the system, fit that culture that they've created down in South Florida.
Yeah, and obviously Marchand definitely fits into that. They now shoot the plastic rats at him because he's born to be a Panther. Oh, that grates on me. But anyway, you look at that, like Tarasenko was a fine player, right? I mean, a good bottom six center. They won the Stanley Cup. But the two guys on either side, with Lindell and Luosterainen, were so big in that postseason last year. They've been still pretty big this year. And you add a Brad Marchand instead. That third line has been deadly. And it's covered up a lot of things. One of which being Matthew Tkachuk is still hurt here, if not injured. And I know we've seen a lot of fans in the comments talk about our Leon Draisaitl takes about how he was hurt last year. He was. And again, a lot of people are hurt in the Stanley Cup Final. A lot. Matthew Tkachuk misses pretty much the back half of the regular season. He's playing hurt at the Four Nations. Doesn't come back till right before game one of the postseason, maybe. And he's still producing, but it feels like he's not at 100%. A lot of other guys have stepped up. Does he need to be back to vintage Matthew Tkachuk for the Panthers to repeat in this series?
Hard to say because they've been able to get the job done with him not at 100%
Right,
throughout these whole playoffs. So the Florida Panthers are plenty deep enough and have several other guys that can step up in his absence, but he's still producing. I don't know what the expectations are for Matthew Tkachuk, but what he's been able to accomplish both in point total in these playoffs, but also just what he brings to the table, I'm not sure you're ever going to hear an excuse from him saying that he's too injured to play, especially this time of year. So what he brings to the team, the aura, the energy, the culture, it starts with him. So 100% or not, he's playing. I'm sure you're going to have to strap him into a chair to prevent him from actually getting out on the ice, because that's just the mentality that I feel he plays with when I watch him on the ice.
Yeah, and even when they've been down, obviously not down and out, but even when they were down in this postseason, down 2-0 against Toronto, like Tkachuk was still not at 100%. He still wasn't producing. It's not like Tkachuk had this Messier game 6 94 and got them back in the series. It was the other guys, and Marchand scores the game winner. I mean, lest we forget, they were down 2 goals twice in that game. That was very, very close to being a 3-0 series lead for Toronto. I mean, they could have found a way to blow it anyway, but it was really that close to having a stranglehold on the series. And looking at this Cup Final run, it's like they've barely broken a sweat. Is that too harsh to say? Like, they didn't at the back half of that Toronto series, like once it got to 2-2, you're like, Florida's going to win this series. Even going back to game 7 in Toronto, I think a lot of people were like, Florida's still got this. And it's like they've hardly broken a sweat. Do you think the Oilers are going to give them the best run for their money here in the final like they did last year?
As a hockey fan, I'd love to see that. We've talked about on almost every show this week, for the sake of Connor McDavid and the entire country of Canada, how important this series, this Cup Final is for so many parties involved. This Edmonton team is talented. I'd argue the Oilers have more skilled guys, more playmakers than Florida. However, Florida probably, you could make a really strong argument, has the deeper and more well-balanced team.
And maybe a better system, to be fair.
In a more centralized culture. You know what you're getting with the Panthers. They also have a stronger goaltender, or at least a more consistent goaltender. So how will all those different aspects of what makes each team unique come together in this Stanley Cup Final? I'm not sure, but I definitely think that the Edmonton Oilers should give the Florida Panthers their toughest run here in this Stanley Cup Final. I mean, go back to the first round when I had Tampa Bay beating Florida.
Same here. Here. Got a hand up.
And now I'm the crazy one. I guess you are too, Cam, because would they win in 5?
5 games. It wasn't really close. Yeah.
Mm.
So here we stand. The Oilers got within one win last year. They're a better team this year. The Panthers did win the thing last year. They might be better this year. So who is going to take it in the rematch? We have our official Stanley Cup final picks, the winner, and in how many games coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night. The time has finally come. Third period of tonight's Locked On NHL Game Night alongside Tyler Feldman. I'm Cam Stewart. The next time we do this show, Tyler, we will be recapping a Stanley Cup final game, which is less thinking for us, which is cool.
Thank goodness.
I'm a fan of that. It's about time, man.
My
5 days.
patience has been tested. That's a lot of rest.
Gary,
that's a lot of travel, though. That's a lot of travel. A lot of travel.
That is going to be brutal. That is the furthest distance between two Stanley Cup final opponents. Meanwhile, in the NBA, you've got Indiana and Oklahoma City. You could drive that. Edmonton and Florida, the northernmost team, the southernmost team for the second year in a row, that did beat out the 2011 Vancouver to Boston experience. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the 2025 Stanley Cup final. The time has come for us to make our picks. We've alluded to it a couple of times in this show and throughout other shows. We haven't been terrific at this. It's been very hit or miss, I would say.
The total opposite of terrific.
We're certainly not looking down the barrel at a Leafs-Jets Stanley Cup final, as fun and chaotic as that would have been. And I think I had Tampa and Vegas, so we're not looking down at those. None of those teams made the conference finals, but here we are, the rematch. Florida, Edmonton. Tyler Feldman, we start with you. Who is your pick to hoist Lord Stanley?
Give me the Edmonton Oilers in 6.
Whoa! The Oil.
In 6.
Full revenge in Florida.
I feel like I lost sleep over making this decision. I knew I was going Oilers. I'm trusting my gut again. Last time I trusted my gut, I had the Carolina Hurricanes beating the Florida Panthers in the Eastern Conference Final in just 6 games. As many of you know who have made it this far in this episode, that means you're a hockey fan. That did not happen. My picks this playoff season have been terrible. They have been far from great. But maybe, just maybe, I get the Stanley Cup final champion right leading up to the Stanley Cup. This is no prediction far off. This is in real time predicting the final series of this season. I like the Oilers in 6. I could see it also in 7, but I'm sticking with 6 because that's what we're doing here, Cam. Connor McDavid wins the Conn Smythe. He gets the MVP, and he gets his first Stanley Cup. Everyone's happy, okay? Everyone will be happy, unless you're a Florida Panthers fan.
Yes, everyone but our South Florida contingent will be quite happy. What a way that would be to end your prediction postseason, is if you nail that. That would wash away a lot of ills, I think.
Let me nail one prediction, okay? Give me one, okay?
And you know what we haven't even talked about before I get into my prediction, because I think we agreed, like, in some series this matters. I don't think it matters at all in this series that Edmonton actually has home ice, unlike last year. Both these teams can win on the road like it's nothing. I just don't. Do you feel the same way? Do you think that even really matters?
I do.
Yeah.
But you could tell me that your favorite pizza sauce is white sauce, and I'd probably agree with you, even though deep down I don't. That's how convincing you can be, Cam.
Look, it's not bad, man. It's not bad.
It can be good. A nice white
Alfredo
pizza
kind of sauce, yeah. All right. This has been a tough one for me. I've been thinking about this for like 3 days and really trying to go through the numbers, because I've trusted the gut before. It's not been good. I've actually been decent at hedging these bets these last couple. I only picked the Panthers in the last series because you didn't, so I'm not even really counting that. But
okay.
I did. I should be claiming that victory, but I can't, because I also really wanted Carolina to win. And I thought they had a legit shot to do it. I was wrong. I thought that Stars one was going to be quick over the Jets. It ends up going 6, but I had that right. I thought the Oilers could be quick over the Stars. Was right in that. My heart is rooting for the Edmonton Oilers. Like, I'm not backing away from that. I would prefer to see the Oilers win this series. But my head,
but
my head is what I'm picking with. And I am picking the Florida Panthers because I keep picking against them, and it's not working. It's not working. I've done it for the last 3 years. It has not worked but one time. So I will be picking the Florida Panthers to repeat as Stanley Cup champions, and I have them doing it in a heartbreaking fashion for the Oilers in Game 7 on Edmonton's home ice. I just think that doesn't bother them. In fact, because I'm a real sicko, I think they're going to be up 3-2 going back to Florida, and they're going to lose Game 6 at home and then win Game 7 on the road. I don't want it to happen. Okay. I don't, but I can't keep picking against these guys.
Okay.
And they won it last year, and I think they're better. Do I think Edmonton's better? Yes. I think that Zach Hyman injury is a big deal. And so I gotta give the edge to Florida. Before we get out of this, we've each made our picks. Has there been any part of you that's thought about like the crazy scenario that one of these teams is just completely wiped out and we don't know it yet and this ends in 5 games? Haven't given any thought to it?
It was either 6 or 7.
Sneaks up on you.
I was weighing the argument you made was fantastic. Makes a lot of sense. I'm sure a lot of other people feel that way as well. These are just 2 talented teams, though, for me to say, it's only going to go 5. If that happens, though, I don't think I'd be shocked. But I don't see that happening.
And I hope it doesn't. I do hope it is a long series and we get plenty more episodes of Locked On NHL Game Night. Tyler's riding, loyal to the oil. I'm just picking the Panthers. I won't put any cutesy thing on it. I'm just picking them because it feels like the smarter thing to do. Anyway, let us know what you guys think. Who is going to win the Stanley Cup and in how many games? Let us know in the comment section below. Let us know how stupid or how handsome we are in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Helps us on the path towards 5,000 subscribers. This show has really been blowing up the channel. And if you like and subscribe, that shows our boss, Sean, that we're doing a good job as well. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping videos on YouTube after these Stanley Cup Final games and all the days in between. Also available wherever you get your podcasts as well. So be sure to make this your first stop after every Stanley Cup Final game to hear from the local experts like Armando and Nick and the guys like us, Tyler Feldman and Cam Stewart, on Locked On NHL Game Night.